Kristen Welker likes to put herself on display. I mean, she's a journalist-ish person. She's not. She's an entertainer, a news info provider, a news food, like a cheese food. You know, the type of cheese you spray on things like the Ron Popeil hair. What if they got the labels messed up and they actually put the spray on hair in the cheese? And would anyone know? Would you actually know the difference? Kristen Welker had a concern about cost related to our military. She was talking with President Trump.
We're going to have a big, beautiful parade.
A military parade?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We're going to celebrate our military. We have the greatest military in the world.
What's the price tag? Do you
People, peanuts compared to the value of doing it. We have the greatest missiles in the world. We have the greatest submarines in the world. We have the greatest army tanks in the world. We have the greatest weapons in the world. And we're going to celebrate it.
That's a fascinating question for a journalist to ask. And it's a good question for a journalist to ask or a news food provider. It's not a question they ask, only when it has to do with our military. And we can prove this with one tiny little square of a tweet, and we'll do that in a second. Look, I can say I get torn on the topic of a big military parade because it brings to mind North Korea and Russia, but we aren't North Korea or Russia. We're the United States of America. I think President Trump legitimately loves our troops. I think he legitimately wants to honor them. And since the military has been so dishonored by the previous people who ran Joe Biden, time to do that. You know, I would honor anyone who served, particularly people like my friend Tim Cruikshank, founder and CEO of Bone Frog Coffee. Tim was he was a Navy SEAL, 3 times deployed on our behalf as a medic to the SEAL teams. So not only seeing combat, but going and helping his fallen SEAL buddies, comrades, friends. That's why it's called Bone Frog. If you look at the bag, there is an image of a fallen frog. That's a frogman down. That's what it means to Tim. When you purchase Bone Frog, 10% of proceeds go to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And that's all a great story, but what about the coffee? Well, Tim didn't know how to make coffee, so he hooked up with a coffee mentor, a guy named Dave Stewart. Dave has a bit of a resume. He started Seattle's Best Coffee, which became so good and so successful that Starbucks was forced to purchase it. It's still better coffee, by the way. He mentors Tim's team. He even makes some of the roasts. So go and honor the military this way with great coffee. It's bonefrogcoffee.com/Todd. Use promo code Todd to get 10% off all their products, 15% off subscription coffee. What will it cost? That's an interesting question for a news food provider. And here in one tiny square-ish, maybe a rectangular little tweet, we have from Doge AI. Department of Education budget exploded 157% to $268.4 billion, zero improvement in outcomes. $521 billion lost yearly to government fraud. Pell Grant scams rampant. California colleges alone lost $5 million plus to bots. 1 in 4 applicants were fake. $1.7 trillion student loan debt proves bureaucrats failed. Dissolved the Department of Education return power to the states. What does it cost? What does illegal immigration cost? What did shutting down 1/3 of our nation's economy cost? No one cared, but when it comes to a military parade, oh yeah, we've got to make sure we talk about cost there. We also can turn to our dear friends, the New York Times, to look at this from a different perspective. New York Times reporter Eric Lipton talking about a scale we've never seen before in the United States. A scale of what? Oh, corruption. Now, pay careful attention. It's corruption like we've never seen. Not even, like a year and a half ago.
Let me begin with you. You and your colleagues published a major investigation this week in the New York Times where you conclude, and these are your words, the firm largely owned by a Trump family corporate entity has erased centuries-old presidential norms, eviscerating the boundary between private enterprise and government policy in a manner without precedent in modern American history. Break that down. What are the major questions of potential corruption and conflicts of interest?
So, of course, that question is coming from George Stephanopoulos. And there was a famous article that is so well hidden by the Google machines and just disappeared. And it was, I think it was called the 17-year conference call that George Stephanopoulos, while working at ABC, or pardon me, ABC, was still having phone calls with Democrat bosses to advise them on messaging. And they're talking here about crypto, and we're going to hear the great words of a New York Times reporter who wants us to know that this is corruption on a scale we've never seen before, not even over the past, 4 years and 30 years before that in the Senate.
I mean, this is a nation that we've always had campaign fundraising where people are taking donations, but these donations are going to their political causes. What we've never seen before at this scale in modern American history, or really in American history overall, is a president who is effectively, through his sons, owns businesses that are personally profiting off of regulatory decisions that he's making. And the conflicts of interest here are just, the word we don't like to use too much in Washington among reporters is unprecedented, but these truly are unprecedented. And he is, appointing the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission at the same time as the SEC is shutting down investigations of some of his business partners. He pardons a crypto executive named Arthur Hayes, who is an investor in one of the companies that's partnered with with World Liberty Financial. He's offering 220 people the right to come and have dinner with him at his golf course in Virginia. At the same
Unprecedented. Not in any way unprecedented, of course. We could simply turn to the Biden crime family. President Trump is president. His family gets to be involved in business. I think the crypto coin is a bad look. I think the Trump coin is a bad look. I said it a long time ago. It's a bad look. But the pretense that this is unprecedented, please go and look up the net worth of the Obamas. Please go find the product they created, or better yet, the Biden family and their $50 million. Do they hear themselves? Does anybody in the media hear themselves? Kristen Welker, what will it cost? A lot less than the Department of Education fraud. This guy, we've never seen the son of a president benefit from any decisions made in office before. Do you hear yourselves?